Hi, this is Rachelle at Rivet Patterns, and in this video we are going to be talking about a high round back adjustment. High round back adjustment means that at the top of your back, underneath the little bone that's at the base of your neck, that part is rounded and higher up, which means that your center back length is longer than what a pattern is drafted for. You might find that your tops and dresses are sliding backwards on your shoulders and your neckline is trying to creep up in front. There's also the forward shoulder adjustment that might help this, and I will link that video in the comments below. But if that doesn't work for you, this might be the solution for you. So in this video, we're talking about specifically without darts. It means that if your bodice is on the fold, this is the free heather top, we will need to create a center back seam to do this shaping. I'll show you in a different video how to keep this on the fold and add darts in other places. But for now, we're going to keep this, and this means that it also limits the amount that you can add. If you're adding more than an inch, you're going to want to go the dart route because otherwise things get really funky. So all right, so let's start. The first thing we have to do, as always, is draw on your seam allowances. So, and I'm going to just do this very inaccurately. You'll want to be accurate on yours. And just like in my other videos that I've explained, I usually just take these off entirely and then add them back on at the end because it makes it easier. This bodice is already on the fold. We will be creating a center back seam when we do this, but if your bodice already has a center back seam, you're going to want to take the seam allowance down and you're going to cut it off entirely, and we'll add it back at the end once you've got the curves done. Okay, so this is fairly direct in how we do this. So your first line, you're going to want to draw directly horizontal under your seam allowance. I'll use a different color. Okay, so make sure that you're down below your seam allowance here and draw to the seam allowance. So this is going to be a hinge here. If you're only adding a small amount, say a half an inch or less, you don't need to make this second one, but you can. It'll even it out easier, and if you are adding half inch to an inch, you're going to want to do this. So bring it down, I don't know, about 6 inches or so, kind of to the bottom end of the arm side, and then do the same thing over to the seam allowance. Okay, and that's your hinge there. So then we're going to go ahead and create our hinges, and you're going to do that by cutting from the center back here and stop at that hinge, and the same here. Stop at the hinge. Now to make these, you see, doesn't work very well with the paper still attached, and this is why I remove the seam allowances a lot of the time. I'm going to make a snip into the seam allowance here like this so that it moves but it still stays attached. Well, that is really close. If you do happen to cut through it, don't worry, just tape it and do it again. So I'm going to do the same thing with this one. Make my other hinge. Oh, see, fell apart. It's okay. Like I said, that's what tape is for. So I'll just put a piece of tape there and then re-snip. Not quite so close. There. So now we have movement in order to add length to our center back. Wow, really hinged, didn't it? So I'm going to put this right on my guideline here. Actually, I'll move it up so you can see it better. So this is why we're going to create a center back seam. When you move these hinges, you're going to create a curve here. Now, if you're doing a very small amount, like a 1/2 inch or so, you could probably get away with just cutting straight on there and keeping it on the fold, but it's not going to be extraordinarily accurate. So this is, if you're going to pull up, so let's say we're adding a 1/2 inch. Make that directly on here. So right here, you'd move this up 1/2 inch, and you'd end up with a little bit of a curve. But you can see what I'm saying. If you're adding a very small amount up at the top, that tiny little bit you could straighten out and keep it on the fold. Or you can also spread it out 1/4 and 1/4, but the more you move this big backside, the more this moves. So if you need to add, let's say 1 inch, then we're going to need a center back seam in order to sew this. So you're going to start down here, and you'll move this 1/2 inch, and then you'll move your top half another 1/2 inch. That will add a full inch. You can do more than an inch total here. You could possibly do up to 2 inches, but you can see how the more you move these, the more distorted that this becomes. So then you're losing a bit up here. It's becoming, if this is not going to be, you're going to get a weird point with your neckline when you cut that. So it's best, if we're going to go more than that, you can experiment with it, to add in darts. And like I said, that's in a different video. So what you'll do here is you're going to, this is your new pattern piece. So you're going to go ahead and trace out your new pattern piece here, and then add a seam allowance all the way down. And now you will have a center back seam to sew, just as you would your regular bodice. And that's it. There's not a whole lot to it. Thank you for joining me.